Deciding to test my husband Kostya, I said, "Kostechka, I'm sorry, I've been demoted and most likely will be fired later." But the truth was that in reality I was promoted to the level of sales director. My husband yelled at me and called me useless. But a week later, I accidentally overheard a conversation between my husband and my mother-in-law. From what I heard, I almost fainted from horror. I always considered myself lucky before. Who was as lucky in life as me? Loving parents, excellent education, good career, beautiful house. And my husband Kostya, Kostenka, Kostyusha. I called him different things when we were alone. He laughed and kissed me on the tip of the nose. He said that I was his main treasure, that he was the happiest person because he met me. I believed him. How could I not trust him? We met 6 years ago at a corporate marketing conference. It was stuffy, boring, and endlessly long. The air conditioner wasn't working in the hall, and the speaker spoke in such a monotonous voice that half the guests were frankly dozing off. I sat there, fanning myself with an advertising booklet instead of a fan, and regretted that I had agreed to come here at all. And then someone handed me a sweaty bottle of mineral water from the side. "Here, you seem to need it more than I do." I turned my head and saw Kostya for the first time. Tall, fit, with a slightly mocking look. Dark, slightly wavy hair, a clear jawline and a dimple when he smiles. He was smiling. "You look like you're ready to strangle the speaker with this booklet." I couldn't help but smile back, took a sip of water, nodded in gratitude. And when the tedious report finally ended, we started talking. It turned out that Kostya works in a company related to ours, heads the sales department. We had common professional interests, acquaintances, and we also had the most ordinary coffee after the conference. And then a long walk through the evening city and SMS calls, a meeting, and 6 months later, a proposal and a wedding. I was absolutely irrevocably happy. For 5 years we lived like in a fairy tale. Kostya was attentive, caring, flowers for no reason, surprises, various little things that a happy family life is full of. And only one cloud on the horizon, my mother-in-law. Inessa Vladimirovna made it clear right away that I was not the daughter-in-law she dreamed of. Too independent, too passionate about work, not domestic enough. Strange that they still haven't given me grandchildren. Polanushka, all career. What are they doing all day long? Kostenka already earns decently, she could think about family. I learned to let such comments go in one ear and out the other, smiled, changed the subject. Kostya also tried to smooth things over, although I saw that he was a little afraid of his mother. Too active, bossy, she was used to commanding everyone, being in the center of events. After her husband's death, Inessa Vladimirovna became a widow early. The entire focus of her attention shifted to her only son. A loving son endured his mother's endless attention patiently, but sometimes his patience ran out. Then there were stormy quarrels. However, they quickly made up and everything went as usual. And so 3 weeks ago, I was offered the position of sales director. Our department had been working without a leader for 6 months, and I had a real chance to get this position. I was already performing many tasks of an informal leader, so why not get the corresponding position, salary, authority? I came home, inspired, full of plans, anticipating how happy Kostya would be. He always supported my career ambitions. He generally supported me in everything. Kostya was home, sitting in the kitchen, concentratedly reading something on his laptop, and looked somehow strange, tense, didn't even raise his head when I came in. "Hi, honey, I'm back." I came up from behind, put my arms around his shoulders, looked at the screen. He immediately closed the laptop. "What's wrong?" "Nothing interesting. It's okay at work. Everything's fine. I just missed you. How's work going?" "Normal." Kostya got up, kissed me on the cheek, and went to the bathroom. He smelled of expensive cognac. That was strange. He never drank during the week, especially not alone. I stood in the middle of the kitchen, not knowing what to do. Then I decided to start making dinner. I turned on the stove, took out the groceries, chopped vegetables for a salad, put the meat to marinate for the steaks that Kostya loved so much. He returned half an hour later, refreshed after a shower, poured himself some whiskey, and sat across from me. "And where's yours? Want a drink?" "No, I'm passing today. I have to work tomorrow." "You never drink on a weekday. Did something happen? A tough day?" He knocked back the glass in one gulp, grimaced, and poured himself another. Definitely something happened. Kostya liked to savor good alcohol, not gulp it down like medicine. I was still wondering whether to share my news, but decided that now is not the time. If my husband has problems, then first we need to find out what is happening. Do you want to talk? You seem tense. Everything is okay, right? We had dinner almost in complete silence. Kostya seemed to be separated from me by an invisible wall. After dinner, he buried himself in his laptop again, and I decided not to bother him. Maybe there really is a rush at work, so a few days passed. Kostya was silent, aloof, barely maintaining a conversation. I was starting to seriously worry if he had problems that he doesn't want to talk about. But then why? We always shared our problems with each other, always supported each other, or did I imagine it? And then something strange started. Kostya started talking on the phone for a long time, going out onto the balcony and closing the door behind him. If I came in, the conversation immediately stopped. Several times I caught him with a quickly closing laptop. He started staying late at work more often, returning too fragrant with perfume, and sometimes he smelled of other perfumes, women's. I didn't want to think about the worst, but thoughts came into my head on their own. What if Kostya has another woman? All these secret conversations, strange behavior, irritability, classic signs of cheating. Lada, my older sister, rolled her eyes when I shared my fears with her. But here you go again. Complexes, suspicions, paranoia. The same thing happened to me. Remember, I also decided that Valerie was having an affair when he started to stay late often. But it turned out he was preparing a surprise for my anniversary. I remembered, yes, Lada had similar fears, and everything turned out to be harmless, but the situation was different. And Valerie is not at all like Kostya. Maybe he just has problems at work or something else that he doesn't want to worry you with. Lada continued, then why not say so? We always shared problems. Men are strange. Sometimes they need to digest everything themselves before sharing. Give him time and space. He'll tell you himself when he's ready. Maybe you're right, but the anxiety didn't let go. With each day, Kostya became more and more detached. Sometimes he looked at me with some strange expression. And one day I woke up in the middle of the night and saw him sitting on the edge of the bed. He was peering at me in the dark with such an unreadable expression on his face that I felt uneasy. What's wrong? I asked in a sleepy voice. No, go to sleep. Kostya lay down next to me, but I felt that he wasn't asleep. He was lying there and thinking about something of his own. The next alarming sign rang when Kostya suddenly showed unprecedented interest in my work. Previously, he only asked in general terms, how are things? He sympathized if I complained about a difficult day. Now he began to inquire about the company, the management, the prospects, and how is that reorganization going there? I heard something is planned? I don't know, everything seems stable, no rumors. And with your director, he's new, isn't he? He's been working for 6 months already, quite normal. Are there any layoffs planned? Like no. What made you think that? Just asking. I'm interested in your life. But I felt that it wasn't just interest. Kostya was fishing for something. He never used to go into such details before. What was happening? And I categorically didn't like it. A week later, the promotion offer became official. I was sent an order for appointment. An appointment was scheduled with management to discuss the terms, salary, and so on. I was on the 7th heaven with happiness. It was a serious step in my career, recognition of my professionalism, the opportunity to finally realize the ideas that I had long thought about. I called Lada and shared the joy. My sister sincerely congratulated me, and then she said a phrase that strangely hooked me. Great, now your salary will be comparable to Kostya's. He won't be jealous if you start earning almost as much as he does. Jealous? Why would he be jealous of my salary? But men can be strange in this matter. Remember how Valera tensed up when I got a promotion and started earning more than him? I remembered, yes, Lada had difficulties with her husband on this ground, but Kostya, he always supported me, always pushed me to career growth. True, I really never earned comparably to him. Now the situation was changing. We don't have such problems. Kostya is not one of those who measures himself with salaries. Of course, just be prepared just in case. Sometimes people unexpectedly show new traits. Lada's words sank into my soul. They coincided in an amazing way with my vague anxieties that something strange was happening to Kostya. I began to wonder if his behavior was related to my work. Maybe he heard something about my promotion. Maybe it somehow bothered him. And then I decided on an experiment. stupid, childish, but it should have clarified the situation. I decided to tell Kostya that I have problems at work, to say the opposite of what was happening in reality, and see his reaction. That evening, I deliberately returned home later than usual. I didn't call and warn him. I entered the apartment with the most sullen look possible. Kostya was at home, watching something on TV in the living room. I hung up my jacket, took off my shoes, walked past him to the kitchen. He called out to me, "Hey, where have you been?" I called. "You didn't answer." "Sorry, my phone died and I got stuck at work." More precisely, we had a meeting. I deliberately fell silent, as if it was hard for me to continue. I turned to the kettle, poured water. "What happened?" "It's nothing. I don't want to burden you." I knew that Kostya wouldn't leave it at that. It was always written on my face if something was wrong. And now I was diligently portraying dejection. "Spill it. I can see it. Did something happen?" I sat opposite him, sighed, paused, as if gathering my thoughts. "We were gathered today. Lutov, the new director, said that optimization is coming." "What optimization?" "Reduction, rearrangements. I'm being demoted. Instead of deputy head of the department, I will just be a manager with reduced salary and functionality." I carefully watched Kostya. When the demotion was mentioned, his face twitched. A strange reaction, not sympathy, not indignation. Some other feeling flashed and disappeared. And that's bad. Bad. It's just awful. I worked so much, invested so much effort, and just like that, then most likely they will fire me altogether. Lutov hinted transparently that the reduction would continue. I was ready to burst into tears from my own performance. I was ashamed of this deception, but I had to understand what was happening, and Kostya's reaction was strange. He seemed lost, didn't rush to comfort me, didn't offer support, sat opposite, with an unreadable expression on his face. "So, you'll be looking for a new job, probably. But it's difficult. Now is not the best time. Starting from scratch again." I paused, giving Kostya a chance to say something encouraging, but he remained silent, twirling a cup in his hands. "Listen, I know this is not the right time, but I thought," he began but hesitated. "Anyway, my mom called. She wants to come over tomorrow, have dinner with us." I raised my eyebrows in surprise. That's a sudden change of subject. He just ignored my bad news and moved on to dinner plans. "Of course, let her come over." "I thought you'd be against it." "In the sense, after a day like this? Why should I be against it?" "Inessa Vladimirovna, your mom. I'm always happy to see her." The last phrase was a blatant lie, and Kostya knew it. Our relationship with my mother-in-law was straining, but now I was ready to agree to anything to see his reaction. "Okay, I'll tell her. And that's it. No more questions about my work, about my condition, about plans. Nothing." Kostya finished his tea and returned to his television, and I was left in the kitchen, baffled by his indifference. Or is it not indifference, something else, something that I didn't understand? The next evening, Inessa Vladimirovna arrived, brought a pie, a bottle of wine, was unusually lively, almost friendly. This was surprising. Usually she didn't miss a chance to tease me, make a comment, find fault with something, and then suddenly she was showering me with compliments. "Polanushka, you look wonderful, and you have such a cozy apartment. I don't know how you manage everything. I can't imagine." We were sitting at dinner, and I felt like I was in a looking glass. My mother-in-law was asking me about work, about colleagues, about bosses, showing unprecedented participation. Kostya was tense, hardly joining the conversation, although usually he tried to smooth out our communication, to be a buffer between me and my mother. "Kostenka says, you have some problems at work. You are such a clever girl, Polanaka. It's so unfair." I threw a quick glance at my husband. "So, he told my mother. I wonder why and when did he manage to?" "Yes, not the best news, but I will handle it." "Of course you'll handle it. You are such a strong girl." "Kostenka, well, tell her, support your wife." Kostya seemed to wake up, looked at me absent-mindedly. "Yes, of course, Polina will handle it. She is my clever girl." Never before has a compliment sounded so fake. I physically felt the insincerity of my husband. He seemed to be repeating a pre-prepared phrase, and I didn't like it at all. After dinner I started doing the dishes, and my mother-in-law and Kostya moved to the living room. I heard their muffled voices, but I couldn't make out what they were talking about. Finishing the dishes, I headed towards them, but froze in the hallway, hearing my name. "Kostya, you need to be sure. Did Polina really say that she was being fired?" My heart skipped a beat. They're discussing my fabricated dismissal, and the tone of my mother-in-law. Doubt was evident in it. "She suspects me of lying." "Yes, Mom. She herself said demotion and then, most likely, dismissal. And you checked? Are you sure she's not lying? Why would she lie about something like that? Who knows, women are sometimes quite the fantasizers. Maybe she wants attention or is trying to get money out of you. Remember Natella, Aristarchus' wife? She told everyone she had cancer, but she was saving money to run away from her husband to a ball with her lover. Think about it, Kostya. Think carefully. You have no reason not to trust Paulina, but the situation is too suspicious. It's okay, Mom, I'll figure it out. You understand how important it is to find out everything now, especially after what we found out. You don't have much time. I stood there, numb. What are they talking about? What did they find out? And why does Kostya need to check if I'm lying about my work? I wanted to hear more, but felt my head starting to spin. I felt sick. I quietly stepped back, went into the bedroom, sat on the bed, breathing deeply. Something was happening, something bad. Kostya and his mother were plotting something or agreeing on something, and it was somehow connected to me, to my work. Why does my mother-in-law know if I'm lying about my position in the company? What's it to her? And why did Kostya react so strangely to my bad news? I lost track of time sitting in a stupor. I woke up when I heard the front door slam, then footsteps towards Kostya. Paulina, where are you? I'm here, I replied, trying to make my voice sound normal. I have a slight headache. Your mom has developed. Kostya looked into the bedroom, looked at me with an unreadable expression. Yes, she left, sent you her regards and regret that you're not feeling well. Are you feeling better? Yes, it's passing. Good. I'll sit in the living room for a bit longer. I won't disturb you. And he left without even asking if I needed anything, if I needed pills, or if he should make me tea. He wouldn't have left me just like that if I said that I felt bad. Another confirmation that something has drastically changed in our lives. At night, I couldn't sleep for a long time. Kostya was also tossing and turning, but we pretended not to notice each other's insomnia. We lay turned away, each alone with their thoughts, which they didn't want to share. The next day, I went to work with mixed feelings. On the one hand, I was waiting for a meeting with management regarding my promotion. On the other hand, I didn't understand what was happening at home, and it was knocking the ground out from under my feet. Maybe I should have canceled my little test, told Kostya the truth about the promotion, see his reaction, but something stopped me. Intuition suggested that now is not the time for frankness. First, I need to figure out what's going on behind my back, why my mother-in-law and husband are discussing whether I'm lying about my work, what important matter they were talking about, why Kostya has so little time. The meeting with the management went great. They told me all the conditions, told me about the area of responsibility, introduced me to the staff as the new sales director. I was literally floating above the ground, but I couldn't fully enjoy the success. I was gnawed by worry about what was happening at home. The working day was over, but I was in no hurry to leave. I didn't want to go back to this oppressive atmosphere, to the silent apartment where my husband looks right through me. In the end, I called my longtime friend Veronica, and we met at a cafe near the office. Veronica listened to my rambling story, frowning. Wait, you told your husband that you were getting fired, even though you actually got a promotion, and now you're worried that he's discussing this with his mother. It's not that I'm worried, more like I don't understand. How did he react to your bad news? Did he get upset, start comforting you? I remembered Kostya's strange, awkward reaction. His indifference. No, that's the strangest thing. He didn't react at all. Well, he said, "Oh, that's too bad," or something like that, and that's it. And then he immediately changed the subject. Veronica thoughtfully tapped her nails on her cup. You know what this sounds like? Like what? Like your husband knew about your promotion or suspected it, and was surprised when you said the opposite. Knew, but from where? I don't know. Maybe he has acquaintances in your company, or maybe he didn't know for sure, but suspected it, and now he was confused that you were saying the opposite of what he had heard. I tried to understand this thought. Kostya knew or suspected about my promotion, and instead of being happy for me, he started some strange game. He was testing me, discussing it with his mother. Whether I'm lying, whether it's true, it's some kind of nonsense. Why? Why does he hide that he knows about my promotion? Why talk about it with his mother? I don't know, Paulina, but I don't like this whole story. You need to seriously talk to your husband. First, I want to understand what is happening and how you are going to do it. I don't know yet, but I'll find out. Veronica and I parted closer to the evening. I slowly walked to the metro, going through different versions in my head. Maybe Kostya has a serious problem at work and he doesn't want to upset me. Maybe he owes money and is afraid to talk about it. Or maybe he really does have someone, and my financial independence is not beneficial to him if he decided to leave me. But then what about these strange conversations with my mother-in-law? I was so immersed in my thoughts that I didn't notice how I got to the subway. And suddenly, in the crowd, I caught a glimpse of a familiar face. Inessa Vladimirovna. I instinctively retreated behind a column, not wanting to meet my mother-in-law now and just in time, because Kostya was walking next to her. They were engrossed in conversation and didn't notice me. My heart pounded wildly. Kostya was supposed to be at work. He didn't say anything about meeting with his mother. What are they doing here together? I quickly took out my phone, pretended to be absorbed in a conversation, and followed them. They headed towards the exit from the subway. I kept a safe distance, making sure not to lose them in the crowd. Kostya and his mother got into a taxi. I barely managed to jump into the next car and tell the driver, "Follow that gray Toyota, please." The driver looked at me suspiciously, but nodded. We moved after them. The taxi with Kostya and his mother-in-law headed towards the center. I was frantically trying to figure out what I was doing. In my head flashed the thought that I was behaving like a crazy woman. I'm stalking my own husband, spying on him. This is not normal. But my intuition screamed that something strange was happening, and I had to figure out exactly what. After 15 minutes, the taxi stopped at the entrance to a business center. Kostya and Inessa Vladimirovna got out and headed inside with a quick step. I paid my driver and followed them, trying to keep at a distance. The security guard at the entrance didn't even look at me. I went through the turnstile and looked around the spacious hall. No sign of Kostya and his mother. There were elevators on the right and left. I noticed one of the cabins closed, and the number 7 lit up on the electronic display. 7th floor. I approached the girl behind the administrator's desk. "Excuse me, could you tell me what's on the 7th floor?" The girl raised an indifferent gaze at me. Kronos Law Firm, Stupina Notary Office, Safe Insurance Company, and several other small firms. "Thank you." I stepped aside, thinking a law firm, a notary, an insurance company. What of this could Kostya and his mother want? And why did they need to go somewhere together, hiding it from me? I went up to the 7th floor. Long corridor, many doors with signs. I aimlessly moved forward, not knowing where to look for my husband and mother-in-law, and then luck smiled on me. In the depths of the corridor, near one of the doors stood Inessa Vladimirovna. I quickly darted around the corner, peeked out cautiously. Judging by the sign on the door, it was a notary office. I saw how the door opened, and Kostya came out. He said something to his mother. She nodded. They quickly headed towards the elevator. I pressed myself against the wall, hoping they wouldn't come in my direction. Fortunately, the elevator was at the other end of the corridor. When they disappeared, I carefully approached the door of the notary office. Opened it. I was greeted by a friendly secretary. "Good afternoon. How can I help you?" "Hello. I would like to consult on a matter." I stammered, not knowing what to say. "Regarding inheritance. You need notary Stupin, but he doesn't have reception hours right now. I can schedule you for tomorrow." And today he had visitors, a tall man and a middle-aged woman. The girl looked at me suspiciously. "I cannot disclose information about clients. I understand. It's just that it's my husband and mother-in-law. They were supposed to resolve the issue with our apartment. I wanted to know if everything went okay. It was pure improvisation, and I didn't know if it would work." But the secretary relaxed. "Are you Konstantin Markovich's wife?" "Yes. They were just here. Everything went fine." "Good, as far as I know." "Great. And could I ask when the documents will be ready?" The girl tensed up again. "You'd better discuss this with your husband. I really can't disclose details." "Of course, I understand. Thank you very much." I left the office, feeling my heart pounding. Kostya and Inessa Vladimirovna were at the notary's about some matter that they were hiding from me, something related to documents. A terrible thought flashed through my head. What if Kostya is preparing divorce papers, or even worse, forging my signature on some papers? But no, a notary won't certify documents without the presence of the other party. Or will they? I didn't understand legal subtleties. I went downstairs, left the business center, and sat on a bench in the square opposite, trying to gather my thoughts. I needed to urgently think everything over and decide how to proceed. I took out my phone, opened the browser, and searched for Notary Stupin. I found a site with official information. An ordinary notary's office. Nothing suspicious. Then it dawned on me. I dialed my sister's number. Lotta, hi. Listen, could you help me? I urgently need a lawyer's consultation. What happened? Are you in trouble? Not exactly. I just need to clarify something. You have an acquaintance lawyer. You said yes, savvily, he's a good specialist. Can you give me his number? And if possible, warn him that I'll call. Of course, I'll send an SMS with his contacts right now. Paulina, you're scaring me. What's going on? Nothing terrible. I just want to consult on one issue. I'll tell you everything later, promise. I didn't want to share my suspicions with my sister yet. First, I needed to figure out what was going on. In 5 minutes, a message arrived with the number of the lawyer. I immediately called him. Savely Borisovic. Hello, my name is Paulina. I'm Lada Arkadyevna's sister. She gave me your number. Yes, Lada warned me. How can I help you? I need a consultation. Is that possible today? I have a tight schedule today, but I can give you 15 minutes during a break. It's only possible by phone. Will that work? Yes, perfectly. Good. Then I'll call you back at 5:30. It was around 3. I had 2.5 hours left before the conversation with the lawyer. I decided not to go back to work. I wouldn't be able to concentrate anyway. Instead, I went to the nearest cafe, ordered tea and a pastry, which I didn't even touch. I was trying to systematize all the oddities of recent weeks, the inexplicable changes in Kostya's behavior, his increased interest in my work, secret conversations with his mother, and now this visit to the notary. The most terrible thoughts crept into my head, that my marriage was a mistake, that Kostya is not really the person I thought he was, that all these years he wore a mask, and now his true essence began to manifest itself. At exactly 5:30 the phone rang. Savely Borisovic was punctual. I'm listening, Paulina. What is your question? I gathered my thoughts. Savely Borisovic, tell me, if a husband without my knowledge goes to a notary, what can he arrange there? Pause. Depending on the question, if it concerns exclusively his property, then he does not need your consent. If it concerns jointly acquired property, then the law requires the consent of the spouse. Although, unfortunately, there are ways to circumvent this requirement. What ways? Unlawful ones, for example, forging a signature. But a serious notary always requires the personal presence of both spouses, if the matter concerns their joint property. Is something specific bothering you? I understood that 15 minutes is not enough to tell the whole story, so I decided to focus on the main thing. I accidentally found out that my husband and my mother-in-law visited a notary. Without saying a word to me, I suspected something was wrong and decided to find out what they could be doing there. It could be anything, possibly a question related to the inheritance of your mother-in-law or personal property of your husband, or business papers if he has his own business. But if it's related to our joint property, can they decide something without me? Legally, no. Any transaction with joint property without your consent can be challenged in court. But again, there are loopholes. If you are afraid that your husband is plotting something behind your back, I would recommend a more detailed consultation. And perhaps it is worth checking if your spouse has taken loans in your name or has committed other financial transactions. I went cold. I didn't even think about that. How can this be checked? The easiest way. Request a credit history through a credit bureau and check statements from all your accounts for the past few months, especially if you have joint accounts. Understood? Thank you very much, Savely Borisovic. If you have serious concerns, I would recommend you consult a specialist for a full consultation. And perhaps you should just talk to your husband. Often the simplest way is just to ask directly. I don't think he will tell the truth, but I will think about your advice. Thanks again. I finished the conversation. I feel like the ground is slipping away from under my feet. What started as a vague suspicion was turning into a real nightmare. Kostya was plotting something behind my back, something related to our finances or property, and he involved his mother in this. And now they were checking if I was telling the truth about my position at work, about my income. I needed to calm down and decide what to do next. I could go into direct confrontation, ask Kostya what he was doing at the notary, but then I would have to explain where I knew this from, and I wasn't sure he would tell the truth. I could continue my game, pretend I didn't know anything, and watch his actions. Maybe that way I can find out what he's plotting. And the third option, I could start acting preemptively, check our finances, accounts, protect myself legally. In the end, I decided to choose the third path. It was the most rational approach in the current situation. If Kostya was really plotting something against me, then I had to be ready. I returned home before Kostya, opened our home safe, where all the important documents were stored. At first glance, everything was in place. Marriage certificate, documents for the apartment that we bought on a mortgage 3 years ago, insurance policies, everything looked normal. I checked my banking apps. All accounts are in order, no suspicious transactions. But I needed to dig deeper. I sat down at the computer and ordered my credit history through an online service. The results will be ready in a day or two. Then I called my friend Veronica, who worked at a bank. Without going into details, I asked how to check if someone had taken out a loan in my name without my knowledge. It's practically impossible, unless he has your digital signature or access to your SIM card to confirm transactions. In large banks, personal identification is mandatory, but there are microfinance organizations that are not so strict with checks. It is best to order a full credit history. It will show everything, even attempts to take out a loan. I have already ordered it, waiting for the results. Paulina, you're scaring me. What's going on? I don't know yet, but I will find out. Finishing the conversation, I heard the key turning in the lock. Kostya returned. I quickly closed all the tabs, turned off the computer, put on a casual look. Hi, are you already home? He said, entering the kitchen, where I pretended to be cooking dinner. Yes, they let me go early today. And how are you? A hard day. Ordinary, nothing special. I was carefully looking at him. He just lied to me, said he was at work, although I knew for sure that he went to a notary with his mother. The feeling of betrayal was so acute that I couldn't breathe. Is something wrong? He asked, noticing my gaze. No, everything is fine, just thinking. I turned to the stove, afraid that he would read everything on my face. I have always been a bad actress. Kostya knew all my emotions, could read me like an open book. At least that's what I always thought. Now I wasn't sure I really knew my husband, and he, it seems, also didn't know me too well if he thought that I wouldn't notice his lies and strange behavior. Tension hung in the air all evening. We had dinner in almost complete silence. I couldn't come up with a sufficiently casual topic for conversation, and Kostya seemed to be absorbed in his thoughts. After dinner, he sat down in front of the TV. I washed the dishes and sat down next to him, pretending that I was interested in the football match on the screen. In fact, I was secretly watching my husband. His face was tense. He was clearly thinking about something. Kostya, don't you want to talk? You haven't been yourself lately. He turned to me. In his eyes, something flickered that looked like anxiety. What makes you say that? I just noticed. You're kind of distant and silent. Did something happen at work? Or I paused. Or are we okay? Paulina? Honestly, I'm just tired. Lots of work. More lies. I felt it with my whole being. But continuing to question him was pointless. He wasn't going to tell me anything. Okay, just know that you can always talk to me about anything. I know. He smiled weakly and again turned to the TV. That's where our conversation ended, and I was left with the feeling that something irretrievably broke in our relationship, something that can no longer be fixed. I spent the next day on pins and needles. At work, I couldn't concentrate. All my thoughts were about Kostya, about his secrets, about his lies. I obviously didn't become the best sales director on the very first day in a new position. Closer to the evening, a response came from the credit bureau. I opened the file with a sinking heart. Fortunately, I didn't find any surprises. No one took out loans in my name or tried to do it. This calmed me down a little. Returning home, I found that Kostya was not yet there. It was strange, considering that he usually came earlier than me. I called him, but he didn't answer. I sent a message. Where are you? Are you delayed? The reply came in 10 minutes. At work, we'll be late. Don't wait up. Another lie. Either he wasn't in the office when I called him at his work number a couple of hours ago, or he's not at work now. In any case, something wasn't right here. I was pacing around the apartment, not knowing what to do. Eventually, I decided to do a more thorough search. If Kostya is hiding something, there should be clues, documents, records, something. I started with his office, rummaged through desk drawers, bookshelves, nothing suspicious. Then I checked the bedroom, closets, jacket pockets, all to no avail. There was the laptop left, the one that Kostya always slammed shut when I entered the room. I knew that it was an invasion of his personal space, but after everything that had happened, I felt that I had the right to know the truth. The laptop was password protected. I tried all the obvious options. Our wedding date, his birthday, a combination of our names. Nothing worked. After the 5th attempt, the system locked for half an hour. It was a dead end. I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling completely helpless. What's happening to my life, to my marriage? How could everything change so suddenly? The phone vibrated. A message from Kostya. I'll be very late. I'll sleep in the guest room so as not to wake you. That was too much. In 5.5 years of marriage, we had never slept separately, if both were home. Even after rare, we always made up before going to bed. It was our unspoken rule. I dialed his number. Ringing. Long rings. And, finally, the subscriber is not answering or temporarily unavailable. He turned off his phone. Kostya, who was always available, who answered my calls, even in the middle of important meetings, turned off his phone. I went to sleep alone in an empty, cold bed. Couldn't fall asleep. I tossed and turned, listening to the sounds in the apartment. Kostya came very late after midnight. I heard the front door slam, how he quietly went to the bathroom, and then to the guest bedroom. Not once did he look in on me or check if I was asleep. The next morning I woke up broken. My head was buzzing from a sleepless night. I looked at the clock, 7 a.m. Usually at this time Kostya and I had breakfast together, but today everything was different. I left the bedroom, peeked into the guest room. The bed was neatly made. Kostya was already gone. He left without saying goodbye, didn't leave a note, nothing. In the kitchen, I found an unfinished cup of coffee and toast crumbs. So he did have breakfast here, he just didn't want to see me. Quietly got ready and left. I mechanically prepared myself breakfast when the phone rang. An unfamiliar number. Hello, Polina Arkadyevna. Good morning. This is Nina from the Stolicny Bank. I'm calling about your application for a mortgage loan. What application? I didn't submit any application. Pause. Strange. We have a preliminary application in your name. Yesterday, your husband, Konstantin Markovich, came for a consultation. He said that you planning to buy a country house. He left your contact information for clarification of details. I froze with a cup in my hand. Kostya was at the bank, discussing a mortgage for a house that I knew nothing about. This is some kind of mistake. We are not planning to buy a house. Very strange. Your husband was very specific in his plans, even left copies of documents for the land plot that you supposedly already purchased. What plot? Where? In the Greenfield Village. It's a cottage village 30 kilometers from the city. I've never heard of such a village and certainly didn't buy any plot there. Thank you for the information. I will discuss this with my husband. Apparently, there was a misunderstanding. Of course, if you have any questions, please contact us. I hung up the phone, feeling the ground slipping from under my feet. Kostya was a farmlala mortgage behind my back for a house about which I had no idea, and a plot of land that I never bought. This was no longer just strange behavior. This was something serious, perhaps even illegal. I quickly got ready and went to work. On the way, I called my sister. Lada, I have a serious problem. What happened? Remember I asked for a lawyer's number? Well, I need a full consultation. The sooner, the better. Polina, you're scaring me. What's going on? I think Kostya is plotting something behind my back, something related to our finances or property. Wait, are you sure? Maybe you're overcomplicating things? I just got a call from the bank. Kostya was there yesterday, discussing a mortgage for a house I know nothing about. Apparently, we already have a plot of land in some village, but I never bought any plot. Lada was silent. Even over the phone, I could feel her shock. Is this serious? I'm calling Savely right now. I'll ask him to see you as soon as possible. Thank you. Half an hour later, Lada called back. Savely can meet with you today at 6 p.m. in his office. I'll send you the address. Great. Thank you, sis. Polina, do you really think that Kostya could, deceive you, rob you? I don't know. Lada, a week ago I would have said that it was impossible, but now I don't know what to think. Hang in there and keep me updated. All day I spent in a fog, unable to concentrate on work. The most terrible thoughts swirled in my head. Maybe Kostya was going to leave me, take the money, property, or worse, to saddle me with debts and then disappear. At 6 p.m., I was in the office of Savely Borisovic. A respectable man of middle age greeted me with a professional smile. Please sit down, Polina. Lada briefly outlined the situation, but I would like to hear all the details from you. I took a deep breath and began my story. Savely listened attentively, making notes in his notebook. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, folding his hands in a steeple. The situation is indeed alarming, but before drawing conclusions, let's sort out the facts. Are you sure that your husband was really at the notary's office? Yes, I saw him there with my own eyes. He was with his mother, and you received a call from the bank about a mortgage, about which you knew nothing. Yes, today morning. These are serious warning signs, but I would recommend not making hasty conclusions. Perhaps there is some explanation, whatever it may be. I can't know for sure. Maybe your husband is preparing a surprise for you. Maybe he really has financial problems that he doesn't want to talk about. In any case, the most reasonable thing would be to talk to him directly. I tried. He avoids talking. Is he lying to me? Then the second step, check your legal and financial situation. Make sure there are no unexpected obligations or debts. How to do it? I can help you with the legal side. We will check the real estate register, the register of notifications of pledges of movable property. We will make sure that there are no transactions with your property. As for finances, you should check all your credit history. Perhaps even temporarily block the possibility of taking out loans in your name. I've already checked my credit history. Everything is clean, that's good, but we'll conduct a more thorough check. And one more thing. I would recommend you be very careful in communicating with your husband. Don't show that you suspect something until we find out what's going on. Do you think he might do something if he finds out? I don't know your husband, but if he is really plotting something, then knowing that you suspect him might accelerate his actions. I nodded. That made sense. I needed to continue playing the role of the unsuspecting wife until I find out what's going on. Good. How long will the check take? 2 or 3 days. I'll contact you as soon as the results are in. I thanked savvily and headed home. My head was heavy with anxious thoughts. I didn't know what awaited me at home, whether Kostya would be there and how I should behave with him. Approaching the house, I saw my mother-in-law's car. Her silver Mercedes was parked near our entrance. It was strange. Inessa Vladimirovna never came without warning, and certainly not on a weekday evening. I went up to our floor, opened the door. From the kitchen, voices were heard. Kostya and his mother were talking animatedly about something. They fell silent when they heard me enter. Polinaka, how good that you returned. My mother-in-law came to meet me with an exaggeratedly joyful smile. Kostya and I were just remembering you here. Hello, Inessa Vladimirovna. What a pleasant surprise. I tried to speak normally, but I felt my voice trembling. Kostya came out after his mother. He looked tense. Hi, Mom stopped by to invite us to dinner. This weekend is the anniversary of Dad's death. I completely forgot. Kostya's father died 10 years ago. My mother-in-law held a memorial dinner every year. Usually she warned a month in advance, not a couple of days. Of course, we'll come. Well, that's great. Inessa Vladimirovna beamed. I'm so glad you both can make it. Kostya said you're having problems at work. How are you holding up? Again, this performance with sympathy. I nodded. I'm trying. It's not that bad. Well, of course you're our strong girl. I've always said that. Really, Kostya? Kostya nodded with a vacant look. He was clearly thinking about something else. But I won't disturb you. I'll go. My mother-in-law headed towards the exit. I'm expecting you on Saturday at 3 o'clock. And Paulina, don't worry so much. Everything will be fine. She patted me on the shoulder and left. Kostya and I were left alone. An awkward pause hung in the air. How was your day? He asked, not looking me in the eye. Normal. And you? Nothing special either? I looked at him, trying to see in him the Kostya I had known for 5.5 years. The one who had always been honest with me, the one whom I unconditionally trusted. But before me stood a completely different person. Kostya, we need to talk. About what? About what is happening. About why you haven't been sleeping in our bedroom. About why you, avoiding talking to me. He heavily sighed. Nothing's happening, Paulina. I'm just tired. A lot of work, a lot of stress. I didn't want to wake you, so I slept in the guest room. Don't lie to me. Please, not you. He finally looked me in the eyes, and in his gaze I saw something that made my heart grow cold. A mixture of guilt, irritation, and fear. I'm not lying. It's just a difficult period right now. Everyone has them. I had a strange call today, I said, deciding to go to the bank. From the bank regarding a mortgage on a house in Greenfield. Kostya froze. His face went pale. You got a call from the bank? Yes. They asked why I wasn't responding to their messages. They said you came, discussed the terms, and that we supposedly already have a plot of land there. It's a misunderstanding. I was just inquiring about the terms. I thought maybe we should consider the option of a country house? For the future. It was just a preliminary conversation. Why didn't you discuss it with me? I wanted to make a surprise, find out everything first and then offer you options. Nothing serious. I didn't believe a single one of his words, but I decided not to push it further. Savily advised me to be careful, not to show that I suspect anything. Okay, but next time, please let's discuss such things together. This concerns both of us. Of course, you're right. He smiled with obvious relief. He thought I believed his lie. It was so painful, so unbearably painful. I'll take a shower and cook something for dinner, I said, trying to make my voice sound normal. No, don't worry. I'm not hungry, and I need something to finish on the laptop. Work. Another excuse, another distance between us. As you say, I went to the bathroom, closed the door, turned on the water so it wouldn't be heard, and burst into tears, silently biting the towel so as not to make a sound. I cried from pain, from betrayal, from the feeling that everything I believed in turned out to be a lie. The following 2 days passed in limbo. I went to work, came back home. Kostya pretended that everything was normal, but was still aloof, avoided serious conversations. At night he slept in the guest room, citing either insomnia or an early rise. I tried to behave as usual. I cooked dinner, asked about his day, told about mine, carefully avoiding the topic of work. I still supported the legend about my demotion and possible dismissal, and carefully watched Kostya's reaction. He was behaving strangely. On the one hand, he showed more attention to my problem, asked questions, even offered his help in finding a new job. On the other hand, in his eyes constantly there was something flickering, like impatience, as if he was waiting for something, some event or decision. On the 3rd day after my visit to the lawyer, Savily called. Paulina, I have the results of the check. I'm afraid the news isn't the most pleasant. What did you find out? First, your husband did buy a plot of land in the Greenfield village. The deal was completed 3 weeks ago. Payment was made in full in cash 3 weeks ago. But where did he get such money? This is the second point. We discovered that approximately at the same time, a sale was made of an apartment in the city center that belonged to your husband's mother. Inessa Vladimirovna sold her apartment. Exactly. And apparently the money from the sale went towards the purchase of this plot. But that's not all. A power of attorney was drawn up at the notary's office, which your husband and his mother visited. What kind of power of attorney? From your name. For managing financial affairs. Konstantin Markovich is listed as the recipient of the power of attorney. Felt like I was doused with ice water. But that's impossible. I didn't give any power of attorney. That's exactly what worries me. Either the power of attorney is forged or someone impersonated you, introduced themselves as your name, presented your documents. I went cold. Could Kostya really go so far as to do that? Find a double, forge documents? This is no longer just deceit, it's a crime. What should I do? First, we must challenge this power of attorney immediately, otherwise your husband will be able to, on your behalf, make any financial transactions including the sale of property, taking out loans. How do we do it? I've already prepared the statement. You just need to sign it and we'll submit it to the notary chamber. But that will only solve part of the problem. There's also the issue with the plot of land and possible mortgage. If your husband really intends to deceive you, then he can manage to cause a lot of trouble before we stop everything. What do you suggest? A frank conversation with your husband in my presence. Or, if you're not ready for a direct confrontation, we can file a police report for fraud. To the police. But yes, this is a serious step that may put an end to your relationship. But if everything is as we suspect, then these relationships are doomed anyway. I was silent, not knowing what to answer. Kostya, my Kostya, the person I trusted unconditionally, whom I loved with all my heart. Is he really capable of this? I need to think. This is too serious, of course, but don't delay. The more time passes, the more harm can be done. I understand. Thank you for your help. Having finished the conversation, I sat motionless, trying to comprehend what I had heard. Kostya and his mother sold my mother-in-law's apartment, bought a plot in a cottage village, drew up a fake power of attorney in my name. Why? What game are they playing? And then it dawned on me, my promotion, my new salary. If I become the sales director, then my income will increase significantly, and the power of attorney gives Kostya the right to dispose of my finances. He will be able to use my money at his own discretion, for example, to pay off a mortgage for a house I know nothing about. But why such complications? Why sell my mother-in-law's apartment, buy a plot of land, take out a mortgage? Why this lie? I couldn't find answers, and the more I thought, the more confused I became. Could it be that all these years have been a lie? Could it be that Kostya never loved me, but only used me? Or is this something new? Some recent plan? In such confusion, I returned home. Kostya hadn't come home from work yet. I wandered aimlessly around the apartment, not knowing what to do, and suddenly it dawned on me, Kostya's phone. Maybe there are answers there. Usually, I never allowed myself to check his phone or mail. Trust was the foundation of our relationship. But now that this trust is undermined, I felt I had the right to know the truth. I knew that Kostya leaves his phone charging in the office. When he leaves, that's how it turned out. A black smartphone was lying on the table, connected to a charger. I took it, pressed the power button. The screen is locked. Password or fingerprint needed. I tried several combinations. The date of our wedding, his birthday. Nothing worked. Then I remembered that we had a shared account in cloud storage. Maybe there's something there. I opened our shared account on the computer, browsed the folders with documents. Nothing special. Photographs, some work files, guests, our joint documents. Everything looked normal. And suddenly I noticed a folder that hadn't been there before. Project G. I opened it. Inside were photographs of a land plot, some diagrams, house plans, documents with legal terms that I didn't understand, and a file titled Plan. I opened it. It was a table with dates and tasks. April 17th, execution of power of attorney. Preparation of P. April 24th, making the first mortgage payment. Use of power of attorney to transfer funds on May 1st. Start of construction, contract with the team, and so on until December of this year. I looked at these lines, not believing my eyes. It was a clear, well-thought-out plan, and I was part of it, or rather, my money, my signature, my trust. But what does preparation P mean? P is me, Paulina. Preparation for what? At that moment, the front door slammed. Kostya returned. I quickly closed all the windows on the computer and left the office. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. Kostya was in the kitchen, pouring himself water. He looked tired, but somehow determined. Hi, how was your day? I asked, trying to make my voice sound normal. Normal, just from Mom's. He didn't say he was at work. He no longer tried to hide his movements. This was new. How well she is preparing for Saturday's dinner. Asked to remind us not to forget. Of course, I remember. I looked at him, and my heart was breaking with pain. How could this man, whom I loved for 5.5 years, betray me so easily and cynically? Together with his mother to make a plan, which led nowhere clearly, but was clearly aimed at using my finances, my position. Paulina, you're a bit pale. Is everything all right? Yes, just tired. A difficult day at work. Still problems with the management. Yes, everything is difficult. Listen, I was thinking maybe you should just leave altogether. I mean, quit yourself without waiting for the reduction. Find something else. I peered into his face. Now that I knew about his plans, I saw how he was trying to manipulate me, push me towards a decision that benefits him. I don't know, it's a difficult decision. I need to weigh everything. But you yourself said that you would most likely be fired. Why endure humiliation? Leave yourself on your own terms. I'll think about it. Kostya looked at me impatiently. He clearly was eager to hear my agreement. So what? So that I would become financially dependent on him, so that I couldn't resist his plans, so that it would be easier to manipulate me. Listen, I have wanted to talk to you for a long time. He sat across from me. Have you noticed that lately things haven't been the same with us? We've grown apart from each other. I tensed up. Where is he going with this? Yes, I've noticed, and I've tried to talk to you about it, but you avoided the conversation. I know, I'm sorry. I just needed to think a lot, figure myself out, and what conclusions have you come to? He took a deep breath. I think we need changes in our life, in our relationship. We're stuck in some kind of routine, doing the same thing, living as if on a schedule. I looked at him carefully, trying to understand where he was going with this. That sounded like a prelude to divorce or something similar. And what changes do you suggest? I think we should move, buy a house in the country, start a new life. I barely held back a nervous laugh. So that's what it is. A house in Greenfield. The plan was becoming clearer. A house in the country. And how do you imagine that? I have a great option in mind. A cottage village not too far from the city. Excellent infrastructure, good neighbors. And how much will it cost? Not so much. I've already picked out a plot. You can take out a mortgage for construction. With your salary, we'll manage. With my salary, which will soon be cut, and then I may end up without a job at all. He stammered, forgetting himself, then quickly corrected himself. I meant with our joint income, and then you'll find a new job, maybe even better than the previous one. He pretended to support me, that he believed in my abilities. But now I saw the falseness in every word of his. This is a serious decision. I need to think, of course think, but not for too long. Now is a good time to buy, then prices may rise. He was clearly in a hurry. He wanted to quickly get my signature on the documents, my consent to this adventure, and it was very suspicious. I understood, I'll think. That's where our conversation ended. Kostya went to his office, and I stayed in the kitchen, thinking about what to do next. The situation was worse than I assumed. Kostya wasn't just hiding something. He was actively promoting some plan related to the house in Greenfield, with using my income. And this plan was carefully worked out, as evidenced by the file I found in the cloud storage. I decided it was time to talk to a lawyer and make a decision further. Playing these games was dangerous, but first I needed to understand the whole scale of what was happening. And for that, there was only one way, to check whether Kostya met with anyone else besides his mother, discussing his plans. The next morning, when Kostya went to work, I called the bank where he consulted about the mortgage. I managed to find out that besides Kostya and Yanessa Vladimirovna in the discussion also participated a certain Mark Evgenievich Frolov. Who is this? I didn't know, never heard this name from Kostya. I quickly looked up the name on the internet. It turned out that Mark Frolov, the owner of the construction company Greenstroy, which was just engaged in the construction of the village Greenfield. A strange coincidence. Too strange. I called Savily and told him about my findings. That's very interesting, said the lawyer. Perhaps your husband is not just a home buyer. Perhaps he is somehow connected with this construction project. But how? Kostya works in the sales department. He has never been involved in construction or real estate. Maybe it's a new project or investment. In any case, this explains why he is so interested in your financial participation. Projects of this scale require large investments. Do you think he wants to use my money for some project without my knowledge? It seems so. And judging by the fact that he formed seal a fake power of attorney, he is ready to act and bypass your consent. But this is fraud precisely and quite serious. I think it's time for us to act decisively. I have prepared a statement about challenging the power of attorney. You need come and sign it. Good, I'll come today after work. And yet, Paulina, be careful. If your husband realizes that you have revealed his plans, he may try to accelerate events. I'll be very careful. At work I couldn't concentrate. Thoughts constantly returned to Kostya, to his lies, to his mysterious plans. I decided to dig deeper and check if we had him joint accounts that I could to forget. Turned out that no. All our finances were separated. Each has their own accounts, my cards. Only the apartment was registered in both names. After work, I went to Savily, signed a statement contesting the power of attorney. He promised to send it immediately. As soon as the power of attorney is revoked, your husband will not be able to act on your behalf. This is the first step in protecting your interests. What about the mortgage? He could have already submitted an application in my name. We will check this. If an application has already been submitted, we can challenge it on the grounds that the power of attorney was fake. And then what? Then we need to understand how deep everything has gone. Perhaps it is worth contacting the police. I'm not ready for that. I understand for now. Then let's act in stages. First, let's protect your finances and property. Then we'll figure out your husband's motives. Returning home, I discovered that Kostya wasn't there. It was unusual. Usually he came earlier than me. I called him, but he didn't answer. I sent a message. Where are you? There was no reply. I sat in the living room, nervously checking my phone every few minutes. The longer Kostya was absent, the stronger my anxiety grew. Finally, almost at midnight, the front door opened. Kostya entered, without turning on the light in the hallway. I sat in the dark living room, watching how he tiptoed towards the guest bedroom. It's late, I said, turning on the table lamp. Kostya flinched. Paulina, are you not sleeping? Sorry, I didn't want to wake you. I wasn't sleeping. I was waiting for you. Where were you? At work. Then I went to see my mother. She's a little sick. Really? And I called you at work. I said you left at 4 a.m. That was a complete lie, but Kostya bought it. I was at a client's place after work, and then at my mother's, who suddenly fell ill, even though yesterday she was perfectly healthy and preparing for Saturday's dinner. Kostya looked at me, obviously trying to come up with a new lie, but it was too late. Too many inconsistencies. Paulina, are you following me? No, Kostya, I'm just trying to understand what is happening. What's happening to my husband, who suddenly started constantly lying to me, who discusses some plans behind my back with his mother, who goes to a notary to issue a power of attorney supposedly on my behalf. His face changed. From confused, it became stern, almost angry. You were following me. I didn't have to. You left too many traces, too many inconsistencies, too much lying. It's none of your business. You don't understand. Then explain to me, explain why you hid the purchase of the land plot from me in Greenfield. Why did you forge a power of attorney in my name? Why did you meet with Mark Frolov at the bank? At the mention of Frolov, Kostya turned pale. Where did you? It doesn't matter, you still won't understand. This is business, Polina, serious business. Business that requires deceiving one's own wife, forging documents, lying at every step. You're dramatizing. I just didn't want to involve you until everything was ready. This could be a great opportunity for both of us. For us or for you. Kostya sighed and sat down opposite me. Listen, I didn't want it all to turn out this way, but you have to understand, opportunities like this come once in a lifetime. Mark offered me a share to become partner in the Greenfield project. This is millions, Paulina. Millions. So what? To enter the project, money is needed. Serious money. Mom sold the apartment, invested everything. I invested all my savings, but that's not enough. More is needed, and you decided to use my money without my knowledge, through a fake power of attorney. I would have returned everything to you with interest when the project started to generate profit. And if it didn't start, if it turned out to be a scam or just a bad investment, Kostya looked away. That's also possible. Business is business, but the chance is worth it, and you were ready to risk everything, our money, our apartment, our marriage, for the sake of this chance. You don't understand. This is serious money. We could completely change our lives. I was looking at him, and didn't recognize him. This person, obsessed with money, ready to deceive for the sake of a chance, to commit fraud for the sake of an opportunity. Who is he, and where is the Kostya that I fell in love with? And what about your job? Aren't you the head of the sales department with a good salary? Kostya smirked. It was good until they started cutting us down, until a new director came with his team. I froze. You're being laid off? Not yet, but soon. It's a matter of time. I was warned unofficially. That's what it is. Now everything started to fall into place. Kostya lost or is about to lose his job. And instead of honestly telling me about it, he decided to go to the bank, invest in some dubious project using not only his money, but also mine. Why didn't you tell me? Why would I? So that you would look at pity me, so that she would offer her help. No, I'll solve my own problems. You'll solve them at my expense. I would return everything. I swear, as soon as the project started to generate profit. But I no longer believed a word he said. Too much lying, too much deceit. You know what, Kostya? I think we should take a break, take a rest from each other. What do you mean? I'll live with my sister, and you will think about what you have done, and about whether we have a future. Polina, don't dramatize. We can discuss everything. Find a compromise. What compromise? You forged my signature, deceived me, planned to use my money for your own purposes. What compromise can we talk about? I acted in our common interests. No, Kostya, only in your own and, possibly, your mother's. I got up and headed to the bedroom. I needed to pack my things, the bare essentials. I'll pick up the rest later. Kostya followed me. You can't just leave like that. We're married. We have a shared life that you destroyed with your deception. I quickly packed things into the bag. Kostya stood in the doorway, watching me with an expression of confusion and anger on his face. And where are you going to go? To your sister, who lives in a one-room apartment with 2 children. That's not your business. Polina, let's talk. Calmly, without emotions. I'll explain everything. You have already explained enough, and I understood everything. I zipped up the bag and turned to him. Let me through. He didn't move. No, we need to talk. Kostya, let me through. No, not until we talk. His gaze became harsh, almost threatening. I had never seen him like this. I became uneasy. Okay, let's talk, but not now. I need time to think everything over. If you leave now, then you might not come back, he said in a threatening tone that I had never heard before. This is a threat. This is a fact. I won't let you ruin everything that I planned, everything I worked for. You leave me no choice. I took out my phone and dialed Savely's number. It was already late, but I knew he would answer. Savely Borisovic, sorry for the late call. I need your help, right now. Kostya looked at me, not understanding what was happening. Who is this? My lawyer. His face changed, from threatening to bewildered. Your lawyer? Why do you need a lawyer? Because my husband forged my signature on a power of attorney, was planning to use my money without my knowledge, and is now holding me in the apartment against my will. Savily was saying something into the phone, but I wasn't listening. I was looking at Kostya, at his changing face. He clearly didn't expect such a turn of events. Polina, are you out of your mind? What lawyer? What forged signature? It's all nonsense. Nonsense. And what about the power of attorney that you arranged with Notary Stupin with supposedly my signature, which I never put? Is that also nonsense? Kostya turned pale. Where did you find out? It doesn't matter. I know everything, Kostya. All your plans, all your schemes, and I won't let you use me. He moved away from the door, as if deflated. All his aggression disappeared, replaced by something resembling fear. Polina, let's talk. Calmly, without lawyers, without threats. It's too late, Kostya. Too late. I took my bag and headed for the exit. He didn't try to stop me. He stood there, arms down, watching me leave. In the hallway, I turned around. I will contact you when I'm ready to talk. But for now, please don't try to find me. He nodded, as if in a stupor. I went out, closing the door behind me, and only in the elevator did I allow myself to cry from the pain, from betrayal, from the realization that the person I unconditionally trusted turned out to be not at all who I thought he was. I went to my sisters. Lada, despite the late hour, met me with open arms, put the children to bed in her room, and made up a bed for me on the sofa in the living room. She didn't ask unnecessary questions. She was just there, and I was grateful to her for that. In the morning, I called from Ovelius and arranged a meeting. We needed to discuss further actions. Then I called work, warned that I would take a day off. I needed a day to sort my thoughts out. When I got out of the shower, Lada had already prepared breakfast. The children went to school and we were left alone. Now tell me what happened. And I told everything from the beginning about Kostya's strange behavior, about my little test with the dismissal, about his visit to the notary with his mother, about the fake power of attorney, about the plot in Greenfield, about this whole intricate plan. Lada listened without interrupting, only sometimes shaking her head or widening her eyes in surprise. And what are you going to do now? I don't know. The lawyer says that I have enough grounds for a statement to the police. Forgery of signature, fraud is a serious accusation. Are you ready for this, for a public scandal, for the fact that your husband may find himself under investigation? I wondered if I was ready to go that far. Kostya, with all his deception, was the person I loved, with whom I lived for 5.5 years, with whom I built plans for the future. Could I so simply cross all of that out? I don't know. For now, I just want to protect myself, my money, my property. And then we'll see. Reasonable. And Kostya? He called. Wrote, no. But I turned off the phone for the night. Now I'll turn it on, check. I turned on the phone. Notifications immediately poured in. 10 missed calls from Kostya, 5 from my mother-in-law, and several messages. Polina, let's talk. I'll explain everything. Polina, please pick up the phone. Polina, I'm worried. Where are you? Polina, Mom wants to talk to you. It's important. And the last one, sent an hour ago. Polina, if you don't call back by 12 o'clock, I'll come to your sister's. I have to talk to you. I looked at the clock. 11:30. I had half an hour to decide if I wanted this conversation. He is going to come here, Lada said, looking over my shoulder. Do you want me to say you're not here? No, it's not worth it. Sooner or later, we'll have to talk. Let's dot all the I's. I'm sure you don't have to talk to him if you're not ready. I know, but it's better now than later. At 12, there was a knock at the door. Lada opened it. Kostya was standing on the doorstep. He looked awful, haggard, unshaven, with dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept all night. Hello, Lada. Is Polina with you? Yes. Can I talk to her? Lada turned to me. I nodded. Come in. Kostya entered, hesitantly stopped in the middle of the room. I'll leave you, said Lada. I need to go to the store. I'll be back in an hour. She encouragingly shook my hand and left, leaving us alone. An awkward pause hung in the air. You look good, said Kostya hesitantly. And you haven't slept all night. What were you thinking about? About us? About what I've done? About how to fix everything? I looked skeptically at him. And did you figure out how? He lowered his eyes. No, I don't know if it's possible to fix it, but I have to try. Why, Kostya? Why all this deception? All this lies? Couldn't you just talk to me? Honestly, I was afraid that you wouldn't understand, that you wouldn't want to risk. And I had to risk it. Why? Because I lost my job, Polina. In fact, I am already unemployed. I will be fired in a week with a black mark. I won't be able to find anything worthwhile in our field, and therefore you decided to go into scams. This is not a scam. This is a real project with real profit. Then why couldn't you attract investors legally? Because there is no time, all the deadlines are pressing. And because I am nobody, I have no connections, no reputation in this area. No one will give me money. And Mark Frolov? Why did he take you as a partner? Kostya hesitated. It's hard to explain. Try Mark. This is the husband of my sister's former classmate. We met at a reunion. He was looking for a partner with experience in sales. I was looking for an opportunity to invest. That's how it started. And you decided to invest my money without my knowledge. Not exactly. I was planning to tell you everything later, when there are the first results. Then why forge my signature on power of attorney for insurance? In case you don't agree. So you initially planned to act in bypass me if I refuse? No, I don't know. Maybe I was looking at him and didn't recognize him. This confused, faltering speaking man was so unlike my confident, always clear husband. And your mother, what is her role in all this? She supported me morally and financially, sold the apartment, invested all the money in the project, and also believes that you can use my money without my consent. She sees it as a chance for all of us, for the whole family. For the whole family. But that doesn't explain why you started checking whether I was lying about my work. Kostya looked at me surprised that I overheard your conversation. Then, after dinner, you told your mother about my demotion. And she started finding out. Am I lying? You accidentally overheard. And now I want to know why you were so interested. Am I telling the truth about my position at work? Kostya sighed. Mom thought you were hiding something, that in reality you were doing well at work, and she was right, wasn't she? What does this have to do with it? Why did you need to know if I was lying? Because our plans depended on it. If you had actually been fired, then we would have accelerated the mortgage process while you still have a job. And if not, then we could act more cautiously. I was trying to digest this information. They were planning to use my position at work to get a mortgage before I lost my job and, accordingly, the ability to repay the loan. So you wanted to hang a debt on me, knowing that I might not be able to handle it? No, Paulina, we wanted to use your credit history, your salary to get better terms, and we were going to repay from the project's income. And if the project didn't generate income, then I would have found another way. I would have sold the plot, taken out a loan, but you had already lost your job. Who would give you a loan? Kostya was silent. He had no answer to this question, because he hadn't thought about it. He was so caught up in the idea of quick enrichment that he didn't calculate the risks, didn't think about the consequences. You know what the most hurtful, Kostya? Not that you decided to take a risk, not that you chose a dubious project, but that you didn't trust me, didn't tell me about your problems, didn't ask for help. Instead of that, you decided to act behind my back, to deceive, to forge documents. I was afraid you wouldn't understand. You didn't even give me a chance to understand. Kostya lowered his head. Tears welled up in his eyes. I ruined everything. Yes, irreparably. I don't know. I can't answer that question right now. I need time to think, to decide what to do next. I understand. In the meantime, I want you to fulfill several conditions. What kind? Firstly, I want you to officially cancel this fake power of attorney. Secondly, I want a full report on what you managed to do in my name. All documents, all applications, all agreements. And thirdly, I want you to no longer take any actions concerning our finances or property without my express consent. Okay, I'll do everything. And one more thing, I'm not going to come home yet. I need space, time to think everything over. I understand, but Paulina, tell me, do we have a chance for reconciliation to fix everything? I looked at him, at the man I had loved for 5.5 years, with whom I made plans, dreamed about the future, and I couldn't answer his question, because I didn't know the answer myself. I don't know, Kostya, I really don't know. He nodded, accepting my answer. He got up, headed towards the exit, turned around at the door. I love you, Paulina. Despite anything, I really do love you. And he left, quietly closing the door behind him. And I remained sitting, staring into the void and trying to understand if I believed him, and what I should do next. I spent the next few days thinking about the situation. Kostya fulfilled all my conditions, cancelled the power of attorney, provided a report of his actions. Fortunately, he didn't manage to do anything irreparable on my behalf. Only the power of attorney itself and a preliminary consultation on the mortgage. No applications, agreements, obligations. I gradually returned to normal life, went to work, settled into the new position, tried not to think about what happened, but thoughts still returned to Kostya, to our marriage, to what was and what could have been. I started working in the new position, but didn't say anything to Kostya about my promotion. He still thought that I had been demoted and was about to be fired. I decided to leave everything as it is for now. It was my little secret, my space for maneuvering. Kostya called every day, asked how I was, whether I was ready to talk, to come home. I replied that I needed more time. He didn't pressure, didn't insist, just reminded me that he loves me and is waiting. I almost believed that everything can be fixed, that our marriage can still be saved, that Kostya really repents and will never go for deception again. And then something happened that turned everything upside down. On Friday, returning from work, I decided to stop by home to pick up some things. I knew that Kostya should be at work, although, considering that he was about to be fired, I wasn't sure his schedule. Going up to our floor, I heard voices from the apartment, Kostya and someone else. I quietly opened the door with my key and slipped into the hallway. The voices came from the living room, Kostya and a woman. I froze, listening. You have to do it, Kostya, for us, for our future. Can't, Aglaya, it's too risky. But we have no choice. If we don't find the money, then we'll lose everything. The plot and the investment of your mother and our plans. I know, but I can't do that to Paulina. Not again. You said she wouldn't suspect anything, that it would all look like an accident. I went cold. What are they talking about? What accident? It's too dangerous. If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. My brother will arrange everything. No one will suspect. Accidents, insurance, and that's it. You are free from this marriage and with money for our project. I pressed my hand to my mouth to keep from screaming. They were talking about murder. My murder, disguised as an accident, for the sake of insurance and freedom from marriage. I don't know, Aglaya, this is not just deceit anymore. This is a chance for a real life. With me, with money, with a future. Isn't that what you dreamed of? Yes, but not at this price. You yourself said that she's in the way, that everything is complicated because of her, that if it weren't for her, we would have already gotten the loan and started construction. I know, but murder, don't say that word. It's not murder. It's an accident that must happen. And it will happen with your help or without. I couldn't listen anymore. I felt sick. I quietly slipped out of the apartment, went downstairs, got into the car, and with trembling hands dialed Savali's number. I need help, urgently. Half an hour later, I was sitting in the office of a lawyer, telling him what I had heard. Savali listened with a stony face. This is a serious accusation, Paulina. Preparation for murder. Are you sure you understood the conversation correctly? Absolutely. They were talking about an accident, about insurance, about how I was interfering with their plans. Who is this woman? Aglaya? I don't know. Never heard of her. Perhaps she is somehow connected to this project. Or, I stumbled upon something, or she's Kostya's mistress. Savali nodded. That explains a lot. Perhaps your husband didn't just decide to get involved in a dubious business. Perhaps he had a more personal motivation. Do you think he was cheating on me? That would be a logical explanation for his behavior. Detachment, sleeping in the guest room, secret calls and meetings. I remembered the strange smell of women's perfume that I sometimes caught from Kostya. His inexplicable disappearance, his lies. It all added up. What should I do? First of all, ensure your safety. You cannot go home and preferably do not meet with your husband alone. Then we must gather evidence, record the conversation, obtain witness testimonies, and go to the police. To the police? Yes, Paulina, this is no longer just a family quarrel or fraud. This is preparation for a serious crime, and we must prevent it. I nodded, feeling how everything inside was turning over. Kostya, my Kostya, was discussing a plan to murder me with some woman whose existence I didn't even suspect. It was too scary, too unbelievable to be true, but I heard it with my own ears. Savali immediately called the police. 2 officers arrived, recorded my statement, said they would send a detail to my house to monitor Kostya, and strongly recommended not returning home and not contacting my husband. I returned to my sister with the feeling that my life was completely destroyed. Lotta was shocked by my story. Can't be. Kostya planned to kill you. This is some kind of madness. I can't believe it myself, but I heard this conversation with my own ears. But why? For money, for some kind of scheme, for a woman, some Aglaya, with whom he seems to have been seeing for a long time. Lada shook her head. It just doesn't register in my head. Kostya always seemed like such a normal, caring husband. I thought so too. All 5.5 years. We were sitting in the kitchen, trying to make sense of what was happening when the phone rang. Kostya, I showed the screen to Ladya. Don't answer. If I don't answer, he might suspect something, and so what? Let him suspect. And if he comes here and brings his miserable affair with him? No, I'd better pretend that I don't know anything. I answered, trying to make my voice sound normal. Hello, Paulina. Hello. How are you? Fine. And you? Not bad either. Listen, I wanted to ask, could you come tomorrow? We need to discuss something. I tensed up. Here it is, the invitation to my own miserable affair. What's up? Just I want to show and tell you something. It's important. Kostya, I don't know. I'm not yet ready for serious conversations. Please, Paulina, it's really important. Promise. No pressure, just a conversation. I hesitated. On the one hand, it could be a trap. On the other hand, if I refuse, he might suspect something was wrong. Okay, but not for long. And I'll come in my own car so I don't depend on you. Of course, whatever is convenient for you. Will you be there by 3? Okay. I hung up the phone. I feel everything inside getting cold. Are you out of your mind? Lada exclaimed. You can't go there. It's dangerous. I won't go, or rather, I won't go alone. The police will be watching the house, and Savily will be in touch. I'll call them myself to warn them. It's too risky. Why? I want to know the truth. Lada, tell me the whole truth. Who is this? Aglaya. What kind of plan did they come up with? And most importantly, could Kostya really go as far as murdering his wife? And what if it's not just talk? If he really, I will be very careful. Promise. I called Savely, told him about Kostya's call. He was categorically against my trip to my husband. It's dangerous, Paulina. We don't know what he's planning. I won't go to the house. I'll just meet him in a public place, in the cafe opposite our house. There are always a lot of people there. Nothing will happen to me. Why can't you just wait for the police to figure it out? Because I want to hear it from him myself. I want to know if all of this is true. Or did I misunderstand something? Savely sighed. All right, but we'll take precautions. I'll be in the same cafe at another table, and near the house a police car will be on duty, and you will not go with him into the house under any circumstances. Agreed? The next day I arrived at the appointed time. Before that, Savily and I met in the next block, and he re-instructed me. I had to meet Kostya at the cafe, not go with him to the apartment, not drink anything he offered, and at the slightest threat give a signal, just knock over the salt shaker on the table. Kostya was already waiting for me at the cafe. He looked better than in our last meeting. Shaved, changed clothes, even smiled. Hi, thanks for coming. Hi, you said it was important. Yes, but maybe we should order something first? Coffee or tea? Just water. He called over the waiter, ordered water for me and coffee to myself. I looked around. Savily was sitting at a table in the far corner, pretending to read a newspaper. That was a little reassuring. So, what did you want to talk about? Kostya shifted a bit, as if not knowing where to start. I've rethought a lot of things in these days, Paulina, and I realized how wrong I was, how much I could lose because of my stupidity. Are you talking about your project or something else? About that too, but first of all about us, about our marriage, about how I messed everything up. I looked at him, trying to see falseness, but he seemed sincere, truly repentant. Continue. I realized that the most valuable thing in my life is you, our relationship, what we have built together, and I am ready for anything to keep it. Anything. Really? He caught my tone, frowned. What do you mean? Just curious, how far are you willing to go? For the sake of us, for the sake of our marriage. I don't understand what you're getting at. Nothing. Continue. Kostya looked at me suspiciously, but continued. In short, I decided to stop everything, leave the project, return the money to my mother, as much as possible, and focus on us, on restoring your trust. And what about Aglaya? She agreed with this decision. He froze with a cup of coffee in his hand. His face changed. From open, sincere, became tense, wary. How do you know about Aglaya? That's not important. What's important is that I know, both about Aglaya and about your plans. All your plans. He slowly put down the cup. What exactly do you know? Everything. Kostya, about your accident, about the insurance, about how I'm interfering with your plans and how you need to get rid of me. His face turned white. He looked around as if looking for a way to retreat. This isn't what you think, but what am I supposed to think when my husband is discussing a plan with his mistress to murder me? I would never. Don't lie to me, Kostya. I heard your conversation with my own ears in our apartment yesterday. He froze, then closed his eyes and lowered his head. You were home yesterday? Yes. I stopped by to pick up some things and heard your sweet conversation. Polina, it's not what you think. I would never hurt you. Never. Then explain what I heard. He paused, as if gathering his thoughts. Aglaya is Mark Frolov's partner and my mistress. For a year now. I clenched my fists under the table. Hearing this confession was painful even now, after everything I had learned. Continue. She is very pushy, and when our project started to be struggling due to lack of money, she suggested this crazy plan with an accident and insurance. And you agreed? No. I said it was madness, that I would never go for that I would find another way to get money. But yesterday you discussed the details about Aglay's brother, who will organize everything, about how no one will suspect anything. She was pressuring me, convincing me. I said that it was impossible, but she didn't listen, and you would never have agreed. Really? Of course not. I forbade her even to think about it. I said that if she takes any action, I will go to the police myself. I looked him in the eyes, trying to understand if he was lying or not. But Kostya was always a good actor, always knew how to convince. For 5 years I believed every word he said. And where did I end up? I don't believe you, Kostya. I don't believe you anymore, Polina. No, enough. Enough lies, omissions, excuses. You cheated on me, deceived me, forged documents, planned to use my money without my knowledge. And now you're discussing a plan to murder me, and you want me to believe that it was just a crazy idea that you would never have agreed to. It's too late, Kostya, too many lies. I got up, preparing to leave. He grabbed my hand. Polina, please, let's talk. I'll explain everything. I'll prove that you're wrong. Let me go. No, not until you listen to me. Let's go home. I'll show you something. It will prove that I'm telling the truth. I pulled my hand away. I'm not going anywhere with you. At that moment, Savely approached us. Problems. Kostya was surprised, looked at him. And who are you? Polina's lawyer. I advise you not to touch my client. Polina's lawyer. What's happening? What should have happened a long time ago? Kostya, I'm protecting myself from you, from your mother, from your plans. What plans? What are you talking about? Stop pretending. I know everything. And the police too know. The police? As if confirming my words, 2 policemen entered the cafe, headed straight for our table. Konstantin Markovich Radishin asked one of them. Yes, confusedly answered Kostya. You need to come with us to the station to give testimony. On what case? In the case of preparing the murder of your wife, Polina Arkadyevna Radishina. Kostya looked as if he had been punched in the stomach. This is some kind of mistake. I never. All explanations in department. The police escorted Kostya to the exit. He looked back at me with an expression of such despair, such resentment, that for a moment I felt sorry for him. But only for a moment. Then I remembered all his lies, all his betrayals, and the pity evaporated. Are you okay? Asked Savely. Yes, thank you. You will also need to go to the department to give testimony? Of course. We left the cafe. I watched the police car, taking Kostya away, and felt a strange emptiness inside. No pain, no anger, no regret, only emptiness and fatigue. In the police department, I described in detail everything I knew about Kostya's strange behavior, about his lies, about the fake power of attorney, about the overheard conversation. Then they showed me a photograph of a woman, a slender blonde with cold eyes. This is Aglaya Vasilyevna Tumanova. Do you know her? No, I've never seen her, but I heard my husband talking to her. I see. She's already been detained for a different case. Fraud on a particularly large scale. Looks like your husband got involved with the wrong people. It seems so. After that, I met with Kostya. He was sitting in the interrogation room, gaunt with a lifeless look. Why did you do it, Polina? Why did you go to the police? What was I supposed to do? Wait until you and Aglaya implement your plan? There was no plan. Or rather, the plan was only hers. I would never have agreed to such a thing. Then why didn't you stop her? Didn't end this conversation? Didn't kick her out of our house? I wanted to understand how far she was willing to go, in order to later use it against her. If needed to use against her. Why? Kostya sighed. Because I realized that she is a con artist. She and Mark, they were extorting money from gullible investors, promising mountains of gold and then disappearing with the money. And I was afraid that they would do the same to my mother, with her money from the sale of the apartment. And therefore you became Aglaya's lover to protect mother. No, I just succumbed to weakness, temptation. She is beautiful, assertive, and you and I were going through a difficult time period at that time. Remember, you constantly stayed late at work, was busy with your promotion. So, it's my fault for your infidelity. No, of course not, no. I'm not shifting the blame. I'm just trying to explain. And it's not just about Aglaya. I actually lost my job and was really scared that I wouldn't be able to maintain my usual lifestyle, that I would become worse in your eyes. Therefore, I decided to deceive me, forge documents, use my money. I got confused. Paulina, I made many mistakes, but I never wanted to harm you. Never. I looked at him and didn't know whether to believe him or not. Maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe he wasn't going to kill me, just got confused, made stupid mistakes, got involved with bad people. But the trust was destroyed irrevocably. It's too late, Kostya. Too much lies. You're filing for divorce. Yes, that's what I thought. And I won't interfere. You deserve better. We looked at each other across the table. Two strangers, once husband and wife, once loving each other, once building plans for the future. Goodbye, Kostya. Goodbye, Paulina. I got up and left, without looking back. Savely was waiting in the hallway. How did everything go? Fine. Now I want to file for divorce as soon as possible. Of course. I'll prepare the documents. We left the police station. It was a warm spring evening. People were rushing about their business, laughing, talking. Life went on and mine had to go on too. Without Kostya, without deceit, without fear. 2 weeks later, I received a notice that the criminal case against Kostya was terminated due to lack of evidence. Aglaya had retracted her testimony, stating that it was all just a joke, that she and Kostya were just discussing a plot for a movie, and without her testimony, there was no direct evidence of preparation for murder, but the divorce still took place. Quickly and without Constantine didn't claim anything. He only asked for forgiveness and said that he would always love me, no matter what. I didn't believe it. Too much lying, too much betrayal. I couldn't believe him in anything anymore. After the divorce, I moved to another city, found a new job, started a new life. I tried not to remember Constantine, our marriage, what could have been, if not for his lies. But sometimes on quiet evenings, when I was alone, I would return in my thoughts to the day when I decided to test my husband, saying to him, Kostechka, forgive me, I was demoted and most likely will be fired afterwards. To that little lie, which revealed a much bigger lie, and thought, what if I hadn't lied then? What if I had just told the truth about my promotion? Would anything have changed? Something? Or was our marriage doomed anyway? I didn't know the answer, and probably never will. I only know that sometimes a small lie can reveal a big truth, and that trust is the most fragile thing in a relationship. To break it is easy, and to restore it is practically impossible, especially when the one you trusted more than anyone else in the world turns out to be not the person you thought he was all these years, all these 6 years.